up, everyone? I'm Alyssa.
And I'm Dylan.
And this is Medium Young Podcast. Today's episode is called Healthy Hangs. And we're going to be talking about...
Hanging healthy.
Yeah.
But not in a food sense.
No, we're not talking about the keto diet or your workout routine. We're talking about healthy friendships, healthy relationships, and just a community that you should be going to and what to avoid from a biblical perspective. So same old. We're going to be talking about our own personal experiences, what the Bible says with that. And if you relate, awesome, continue to listen. If you don't relate, why don't you just compare why not and listen anyways?
Very true.
But yeah, so Dylan, why don't we start off with just a little bit background?
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question or so. Would you say that you have healthy friendships right now?
Right now, definitely.
Okay.
Wasn't always a time that I did, but the people that I have in my life, at least the people that I go to for advice, just to hang out with, I definitely say they are way healthier than they have been.
All right. So in comparison to before, what do these friends have that the ones before didn't have?
Sure. So before, it used to be kind of one guy, pretty much, that I hung out with. I didn't have... I had friends at high school, had friends, at church, but, hanging out, it was usually just him and me. It was totally fine. We were friends for a while, but it never really occurred to me his spiritual life, as to how good it was, how healthy it was, or where it was supposed to be. Mainly because I wasn't really focused on that. I was just kind of focused on him, and just our time, playing Madden and doing whatever. And so... now looking back at it, there were definitely red flags in the friendship that we had that ultimately, if I would have stayed in it, would have definitely brought me to a lower level in which that I am at now.
Okay. And then currently right now, the friends that you have, let's list 3 qualities that you think make them healthy friends.
Sure. They're positive. They are just positive people, love to laugh and all that stuff, and make me laugh all the time. A lot of what we do and hang out with is usually church-oriented, church-centered, Christ-centered, and I just love doing that. I just love being a part of, serving other people, and so these people love to do that as well, and so we just kind of do it together, and it's really awesome. And then I think the third, and probably the more important one is they'll call me out on my crap.
Ooh, so important.
Yeah, it's kind of like a truth that I don't want to hear sometimes, but they know that if I do hear it, it's actually going to make me better. Mm-hmm. It's more on my side if I want to take it to where they're, if I can respond immaturely and say, oh, they're hurting me, they don't care. Or I can respond maturely and say, okay, they're saying something, and these people have impact in my life and influence, and so maybe I should listen to what they have to say.
I feel like that's a really good segue to talk about how a true friend calls out.
Sure.
In the Bible it talks about that. Paul talks about how we're called to call out behavior and call out sin, especially in our brothers and sisters. But, at least from our friendship, I feel like being real is what I appreciate the most. And I would much rather have... I know this is a really bad example, but hypothetically, if I looked fat in a dress or I didn't look pleasant in a dress, I'd rather you tell me to my face than not say anything just to make me feel good.
That's true.
And I've always been that kind of person. I've always honored the truth and what you think. And then, like you said, I love that you said that it's up to you to take it. If you want to take it and receive it, cool. You don't have to.
Right.
I think everyone can tell you their opinion, but you don't have to receive it. But at least they were honest with you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are all great qualities in friendships. And I feel like they also have very obvious polar opposites.
Yeah.
Like positivity, you can be negative, or someone that's just very cynical and bringing you down. Yeah. Even the calling you out, that can lead to gossip or lying.
True.
That's another opposite of it. So would you say I noticed that you said this, that you go to your friends for advice.
Yeah.
With people that are unhealthy, why wouldn't you go to advice for them?
Sure. It's kind of a thing of where the people that I trust, and the people that kind of have influence in my life, are just people that have kind of been there for a while. They have quote unquote skin in the game. We've gone through, a few experiences, kind of more than a few experiences of just like were situations where we bettered each other because of it. And the people that I wouldn't go to for advice are kind of people that I'm not really around that much, are kind of like not on the same spiritual level as me. And like as I say that, I'm totally not some holy biblical saint or anything like that.
You are below me, peasant.
Right. Get away from me. No, more so just like having the same like mindset, having the same goal as the people do around me. And some people just don't have that, and that's completely fine. But what I like always tell people is that hey, when it comes down to it, there is 8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
If you and this other person that don't actually end up hanging out that much or don't actually end up being close, I think you'll both be okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a few options to choose from. And so, I wouldn't go to advice for people that I'm not particularly close with. Like, I don't know, they could have a ulterior motive in trying to find out like what's actually like bothering me, to where they could use it against me for some reason. But also, it's like I want to pour into people on a level of which they're going to pour into the same back to me. And we're making each other better because of it. Actually, in Proverbs 27:17, it says, "Iron sharpens iron, so as one man sharpens the face of his neighbor." And so it's more so like they're making me better, and I'm making them better. And for me to like try to do that with someone that I don't do life with, that I don't hang out with, that I don't really have an impact with, I feel like that leaves a lot less of a lasting sort of impression rather than someone who I am close to.
So good. And I think it's also important. I love the fact that you said equally pouring into each other. Yeah. Because I feel like there's a difference between hanging out with someone and actually being friends. Like, it's almost like when you were in school. And a lot of your friends from school, you were only friends with because you saw every single day. You had classes with them.
Right.
I know I barely talked to anyone from high school, even college. Like, I barely talked to anyone from college. Mainly just because it was more of, I was friends with them for convenience.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to recognize, I think I'm in a season at least, where I'm recognizing, okay, who are friends, like true biblical friends that are pouring into me, giving back to me when I give to them, and not just there because it's convenient, And that's something I just noticed, and at least I love that you also said iron sharpens iron, because I'm starting to notice in my life which friends really lift you up towards God and like actually want you to become better. I feel like in my past I've had a lot of red flags in friendships. I mean, I still do. I don't necessarily think I'm the best friend. I struggle with responding. I suck at texting, and that's just a fact. I have flaked on so many people because things come up in work or last minute meetings or emergencies, like all of this stuff. I mean, ministry is chaotic, I feel like.
Amen.
Yeah, and I feel like you can't have a strict schedule.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends have to show me grace. A lot of my friends have to give me the same grace that Jesus gives me, and I'm so thankful for the ones that have sticked out. But I also had a lot of friends that didn't understand, and they took it personal. I remember this past February, March, before COVID, I was doing like really well. I was working a lot. I was so focused on just getting my credit score up and like getting my life together and all of these things that were making me happy, honestly. Opportunities were coming. That's when I got my opportunity for ministry, all of this stuff, and I was being gifted with it. I could tell which friends were celebrating my victory and hard work and which friends were upset with me. And I had friends that were like, well, now you're too busy to hang out, or now you don't text me back, and it was almost like they only wanted to be my friend because I could give them something, not because they genuinely enjoyed my company or enjoyed my friendship.
Dang.
And I'm starting to notice that too with just a lot of people, and it's little things, like little things such as if someone goes, hey, I miss you, let's hang out, cool. Wording, for example, hey, I miss you, let's hang out, I feel like you haven't told me anything about your life, like, what's new? I want to know about this. I want to know about that. I'm like, okay, cool. But it's always focused on me. Like, why are you so focused on what's going on in my life? And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, just the ulterior motive. I come to find out this one friend, this was a little while back, but this was like an example. They were so consumed with knowing what was going on in my life. So every time they wanted to hang out, it was because they felt like they didn't know what was going on. And I come to find out gossip was starting. And then stuff I would share, they would go share. And it spewed into this huge thing.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I just kind of realized I want to go to friends that are actually pouring into me, that are making me better, and that I'm making them better. And we're doing life together.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're truly doing life together, it's very obvious. Like in our friend group, Dylan and I have a friend group that I would say we hang out pretty often.
Yeah, pretty often.
Yeah, we're a pretty solid friend group.
We got some healthy hangs.
Yeah, healthy hangs. But we call ourselves like the hiking crew.
Yeah.
Because we started off as a group that was just going on trips and hikes. And,
because COVID, and we happen to have a lot of free time.
Yeah, and we happen to also live near an area that there's tons of hikes to go on. So it's not like we're traveling into towns and there's plenty of hikes near us. And we all hang out, we all go to church together, and it was a small group, and it was people that I feel like we could all trust and really grow with. And that was healthy friendships. And just in that time, I got to witness, like, true doing life with each other. Like, all of our lives started matching up. Currently, right now, relationships, that's all kind of on the same page.
We'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah, but, like, that's
yes.
something. On top of it, work. I feel like we're all working a lot right now, all of us. We all have pretty similar schedules. We're all very focused on church. I think a lot of our priorities line up.
That's very true.
And that's just, I mean, it's great, because I know for a fact if we got too busy, we'd be the type of friends that we would pick up right where we left off if we missed each other or something like that. And I feel like that's a healthy sign of a healthy friendship.
Totally. One of the things you kind of touched on was, like, the gossip aspect of, like, say, you want to have, healthy hangs, healthy friendships, and people you're close to, but you tried before, and it actually backfired, to where gossip happened. You lost friendships because you opened up, and things got twisted and turned the wrong way. And one of those things that can easily lead to, because of that, is bitterness. And so we wanted to touch on this because it's a very real thing of people opening up, but then being almost caught off guard by the reaction of it, and now are afraid to open up again, to get close to anybody, because the last time they did, it just didn't end too well. And so what reminds us in Colossians 3:13, it says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you." And so, not necessarily that it's the easiest thing to forgive someone who has done you wrong. But what I have found out is that holding on to bitterness only really affects you and brings you down and kind of gets you into the state of just a lot of unhappiness. Yeah. And one thing can lead to another, to where you're just kind of angry at the situation when it could have been years ago, but you never actually got over it. And so the last part of this verse in Colossians 3, when it says, "Forgive as the Lord forgave you," it kind of reminds me of how His mercies and His grace is new every morning. We're human. We sin all the time. And so how much have we gone against God in our own lives, and how much has He forgiven us? It's one of those things to where you might have done something wrong, but God has never left. Where in the friendship level of whatever happened when you opened up to that friend and then something went wrong, you guys split apart. God doesn't do that. Yeah. God will stay with you and has stayed with you and will never leave. And so one of those things is like realizing that God will forgive you every single time. Not that it's easy for you to forgive someone who has done you wrong, because wrongs have different levels of them. Some matter more than others. It's not the easiest and most fun thing to do. But once you do forgive, on the other side of forgiveness, it's kind of hard to explain if you haven't done it yet, because usually people are wrapped up in bitterness. That's the hard truth to realize. But once you do it, it's so free. You almost, some people I've asked, and I've talked to about it, they actually questioned as to why they held on to that bitterness so long. Like if they just forgave,
Wow.
it just felt good. It felt like a weight off their shoulders.
Like a relief.
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is people are afraid. Like, and it's rational, but at the same time, we don't want you to stay in that fear. Anyone who knows me always knows that I preach to people about baby steps of personal growth. Doesn't matter how big a leap or how small a step, as long as you keep on growing. But the problem is with past relationships hurting us, people are afraid. People are afraid to open up. They don't want to get hurt again, and rightfully so. Like, we're not saying that's an irrational fear, but there does come a point where opening up is going to help you. Having a healthy friendship is going to benefit you. It's making sure that you're in the right mindset, doing what you need to do to be in the right mindset, of knowing that a healthy friendship is actually going to benefit you, and that there are people out there that will provide that healthy friendship. One of the saddest things for me to see is just like where gossip happens, and people just they won't be reasoned with. All they'll do is hold on to that bitterness, and so what we challenge you guys to do is to let that go, whatever that looks like, and however slow a process it might be. As soon as you do let go, God is going to be able to lift that burden off your shoulders. But it definitely has to come from you. Like, if that's where it comes back to free will. Like, you choose to stay bitter, you choose to forgive. Just like they did choose to gossip about you, right? We're not discounting that. Like, that was their choice to do that.
Yeah.
And they made the wrong choice, in which affected you. But now you get the choice to either stay in that or forgive and move on.
I feel like also, too, with bitterness, I love the fact that you said, like, it's a relief.
Yeah.
Because the way I view it is, at least through my experience and also just hearing testimonies with this thing that I've noticed is the second we remove that root of bitterness is usually when a blessing or a gift comes.
Wow. That's good.
And with bitterness and friendships, most of the time when you remove that, something good comes. I know right when I was about to end a really, really toxic friendship, it didn't end well at all. Fighting was involved, screaming was involved, and you know what? I just remember praying that night, and I'm like, God, I let this go. Like, I'm done. I prayed for her. I prayed for her future. I prayed that God just blessed her abundantly. And I just asked him, like, honestly, I just want good things. Like, I don't know what else to expect, but just good friendships, good community. And within that same week, I had amazing people reach out to me to join their small group. And I joined a small group. And through that small group, I met my now best friend. Mm-hmm. And all of these things came from it. And just a church community and all of these amazing friends in my life that were so helpful. But none of that would have came if I didn't let go of that bitterness.
Yeah.
And I feel like something I want to make clear too is, as Dylan was talking about doing wrong and people hurting you and stuff like that, biblically we're called to forgive.
Right.
Obviously that's a lot more difficult than it is just to forgive someone. And we touched on this a while back with our old podcasts. But I think with that, you can also recognize toxic traits too. You can forgive someone and not have to hang out with them.
Very true.
You can forgive someone and wish them well, but not have them as a friend again. I mean, even Jesus walked away from toxic people too, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even in Proverbs 12:26 it says, "The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." And I love that it says it choose them carefully, because I feel like a lot of Christians, I'm guilty of this too, we preach constantly, love thy neighbor, love thyself, which is the commandment, which is what we should be following, but that can be twisted into people feeling guilty for cutting friendships off. That can be twisted into people feeling obligated to hang out with someone because they are a Christian, obligated to give someone their time. And I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, our own pastor and his wife, his wife is my mentor, and she told me when I led a small group, I was like venting to her, like, I keep giving this person all my time and they're just not listening to me. They're actually like hurting me spiritually, and just my heart was aching a lot for them. And she said, Alyssa, there's such thing as like time suckers, where people will take advantage of you and people take advantage of your kindness, and no matter how much you want them to be like different, you just kind of have to accept that and walk away. There's going to be a time where you have to walk away.
Yeah.
And that was so interesting to me, because for the longest time I thought as Christians we're supposed to just almost like put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Just so we can be true Christians
right.
and love all difficult people. But something that I'm recognizing is you can love from afar.
Very
you can
true.
love from a distance that's not affecting you. I mean, the Bible says to guard your heart. But going off of what Dylan was saying, you can do that, but also keep in mind too, and something that should be motivational to you and something that honestly should be your fuel, is God doesn't do that.
Right.
God sticks it out with you, and he will watch you and stay close to you. He doesn't love you from afar. And I think that's the blessing. It's such a blessing to have his grace. Because with that, I feel like that leads to proper friendships. Yeah. When you start looking at your friendships and you're like, wow, which one resembles more of God's love for me? That's how it becomes healthy.
Yeah.
And I loved how you said a little while ago that your healthy friends were all surrounded by church and community.
Yeah.
I don't let this be clear too. Church is not the only thing you need to do.
Very true. For everyone to know, my life kind of does revolve around church. I am in ministry. And when I'm not in ministry working, I'm in ministry volunteering.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have a lot of time on my hands, and so there are positive things elsewhere within the world.
Yes.
It's just my personal experience happens to be
and the same with me. It's
yes.
Okay. I mean, but I also feel like when we hang out, like for example, all of our friends, we all met at church.
Right.
And we do talk a lot about church things. We have deep conversations about Jesus and just spiritual growth and everything. But also, we go hiking. We
totally
watch movies. Like, we play games and board. I mean, you know, I feel like we have lives. Like,
we do.
And so I don't want to guilt shame anyone that, like, your entire relationship needs to be, like, the church.
No, definitely
in order
not.
for it to be healthy. Because that's not true at all. I have a lot of really good friends that I actually didn't meet at church. I met at Sac State, you know, in all of these different activities and events. And I think it's just recognizing the fruits and what is the fruit. And something that, I mean, Blake, our pastor, mentioned, because I asked him a question a while back, and he said that you can tell by the fruit. And he's like, if it's causing you, like, worry and depression and just fear, anxiety, anger, like, all of these bad fruits, then you can tell it's not of God.
Right.
And so far, and I'm not saying friends won't tick you off, because they will. You're human. You're going to get annoyed. But for the most part, if you can look at the friendship and see what it's producing, if it's pushing you towards God, if it's making you a better person, if they're pouring into you, giving you back what you give them, it's a healthy communication. They're not shaming you for being vulnerable. They're not shaming you for what you're going through. They're actively listening to you. They're being empathetic to you. They're valuing you as a person. I feel like those are key fruits. Love and just discernment and guidance. And I feel like it's difficult nowadays because just with social media and society and all of these relationship goals, friendship goals, like you want to travel the world and do all of these things, and cool, that's awesome, but at the end of the day, like, I would much rather have 4 followers on Instagram that are my 4 best friends than 2,000 people that I don't even know.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to go to bed lonely, like, you know, and I think that's something we take for granted. Just community is such a blessing. And I know during this time of, like, COVID and quarantine and everything going on, I feel like people are valuing it more. People are actually appreciating their friends more. But it's so good to actually talk about what is a healthy friend.
Totally.
So it doesn't lead you down a path of destruction. And like Proverbs says, the wicked leads them astray to poor habits.
True. And how you kind of talked about the 2000 verse 4. There was someone I talked to. She like had social anxiety of wanting a lot of friends in a sense of like if she didn't have a certain number of people she didn't feel like she was whole or that she was loved. Um, and at the end of the conversation, she was actually brought to tears in realizing that quantity of people doesn't actually surpass quality of people. I was talking to her about this concept of having four, right, instead of 2,040, whatever you want to call. Those few are going to actually have way more impact on you than those 2,000. And the problem is we get in our heads where it feels good to like we mentioned social media about like, oh, have so many likes or so many followers and all that stuff. Like, yes, but like those are also just highlights of your life. Those are not the ugly parts. They're not the crummy parts. And I believe a healthy friend is not just someone who's there for the good times, but is also there for the difficult times. Is there for, I don't know, when a relationship doesn't end well. The healthy friend is the one that gets called to come over to, just be there. A healthy friend is not just gonna take you on your best days.
Yeah.
And like, I want to like go back to that Proverbs 27:17 verse of the iron sharpen iron, so does one sharpen another. Like, in the process of sharpening, it's not an easy process either. Like letting so iron sharpens iron. So this biblical times they had swords and shields, so they were sharpening a sword. It's a lot easier for that sword to go dull and just leave it there because that requires no effort.
Yeah.
What does require effort and time and commitment is sharpening it.
Yeah.
And realizing that doing that will actually produce a better sword rather than one just going dull. Now, in this instance, you're the sword. The person left out to dry is a lot easier for the other person, right? Because they don't have to put effort into it. They can just let that person be there and sulk in whatever mess they're doing. A person who's healthy and is going to be there for you is going to be in whatever situation you have in the ugliness and not falter and not walk away. Not because it's easy, but because they know that you're worth it and they know that you're going to come out better on the other side afterwards.
That's so good. It reminds me of two verses. It reminds me of Proverbs 17:17, which is, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. And I feel like that's true friendship, sticking it out. And then also just the basic one that everyone knows is love is patient and love is kind. It's not quick to anger, it does not boast. But that whole part where it says love is patient, the whole process of sharpening iron is a patient process. And I feel like having healthy friendships, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you have to build connection, you have to build vulnerability, trust, opening up to them, hearing their testimonies, realizing who they are, their unhealthy habits, their good habits. I feel like recognizing the flaws in them and still loving them is what leads to a healthy friendship.
Yeah.
Recognizing what they're doing for you in your life and what they're doing in their life and seeing if they are going to be good for you, honestly. And I know that sounds messed up, like almost like, oh, what am I expecting? But the reality is like looking at the fruits of their heart, and if they're going to be a good friend to you, I feel like having counsel and being analytical is pretty good. But I think that's just something as a reminder. If you don't have healthy friendships right now, healthy hangs right now, keep in mind that God knows that. God clearly states in Genesis 2:18 that man was not meant to be alone. And I don't think that applies just to relationships. I think that applies to friendships as well. So continue to pray about it. Continue to seek community in the right places. Go to church groups. Go to events. Branch out of your comfort zone so God can use that uncomfortability and bring good to it. And just really ask yourself, what do you want in a friend? What are you looking for? Look at your friendships right now and ask yourself, point it at you first, and ask yourself, how can I be a better friend? Am I being a good enough friend to these people? Can I reach out to them more? Can I be more intentional with my listening, and even just in my relationships as communication, ask yourself what you can do, and then go from there. What can your friends do? And have open communication about that. Have a conversation. I know with our friend group, if we were to ever upset anyone about it, we would immediately be upfront about it. I mean, I just had a conversation last week with one of our friends about how she was saying, hey, I would love if you could do this more for me. And I'm like, totally, got this. Like, I would have had no idea if you didn't come to me.
Right.
So give people the opportunity to grow and give yourself the opportunity to grow and just show grace, the same grace that God shows you.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
So that's pretty much today's podcast, Healthy Hanks. So stay tuned again. We do want to apologize for just our schedules lately. It's been a little rough, a little chaotic the past couple of weeks as June is wrapping up and now it's almost July. But
love that.
Besides the point, stay tuned as usual. Tuesdays is our uploading day. Be sure to check out our social media, Medium Young Podcast on Instagram. Thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.